She had just turned 16. 4 days later, someone stabbed her more than 40 times in a dark alley and vanished. No witness, no motive, no evidence, and for over 2 decades, no justice. But here's what no one expected. The killer didn't run, he didn't hide. He attended her funeral. He spoke to her grieving parents, and he fooled an entire town. Until one careless sentence, one twisted diary entry finally brought him down. Left behind a legacy that refused to be buried. Tonight, we uncover the cold case that haunted a nation.
Welcome to Dark Chronicles, where shadows hide the truth.
You might think you've heard it all before, but not like this. Not the way we're about to tell it. Story of a girl who walked into the night and never came home. A girl with dreams of saving lives, whose own life was brutally taken in a senseless act that haunted a town for decades. Claire Tiltman had just turned 16. 4 days after her birthday, she was gone. Murdered in a savage knife attack, so frenzied, so brutal, that even seasoned investigators were shaken. But what made this case infamous wasn't just the horror of the crime. It was the silence that followed, the false leads, the manipulation, the lies, and the gut-wrenching truth that her killer had stood among the mourners at her funeral. And no one knew. Tonight we go back. We go deep, and we don't stop until justice is found. This is the murder of Claire Tiltman, solved after more than 20 years, Dartford, UK, January 18th, 1993. It was a cold, damp evening along the London Road in Greenhithe. Michael Godfrey and his colleague Ron were driving when Michael noticed something. Someone at the side of the road, kneeling, gasping, dying. He pulled over, ran to the figure. It was a young girl. Ron sprinted to a nearby pub to call 9999 while Michael tried desperately to help. He thought maybe she'd been hit by a car, but when he rolled her gently onto her back, he saw the blood. So much blood. It was everywhere. This wasn't a car accident. This was murder. Claire Tiltman had been stabbed repeatedly. Some wounds were 15 centimeters deep. A few minutes after Michael found her, she stopped breathing. He tried CPR, but it was too late. At 7:00 p.m., Claire was pronounced dead. She had just turned 16. What followed was an avalanche of grief, confusion, and fear. Operation Artist was launched. Police sealed off the scene and searched the alleyway near the road, the likely place of attack. Forensic evidence was scarce. No murder weapon, no DNA, no clear motive. But they had a body and a town on edge. Claire had left home that evening to visit her friend Victoria. The two were supposed to talk about college plans. She stopped to buy cigarettes on the way. Her parents, Cliff and Linda, had always been protective. But Claire was 16 now. It was time to give her some independence. They couldn't have known what would happen next. In school, her classmates heard the news over the radio. A 16-year-old girl murdered. The head teacher stormed into the room and turned it off. Too late. The students already knew Joanne. One of Claire's friends remembered the chaos, the disbelief. The police officer who came to speak to them couldn't even get the words out. Everyone was crying. Claire Tilt, as her friends called her, was known for her bright spirit, her ambition, her loyalty. She dreamed of being a firefighter. She had volunteered with the fire service. She was strong, outspoken, loved Queen and INXS. An only child, deeply loved by her parents, and she was gone. Police theorized early on that she may have known her killer. Witnesses reported seeing a man in a light-colored jacket walking in the area around the time of the murder. Still nothing solid. No arrest, but there was something else. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened in the area. December 1988. A woman walking home from a night shift was abducted by a man with a gun and a knife. He dragged her to a quarry, tied her up, photographed her, tried to assault her, and then strangled her with a school tie. When it broke, he stabbed her in the back 5 times. She lost consciousness, but she lived. She lay there all night in the cold until workers found her in the morning. She spent 9 days in intensive care. Her story bore eerie similarities to Claire's murder. Could it have been the same man? One day after Claire's death, police received a tip. A man claimed to have seen someone on a zebra crossing near the crime scene. A man with dark curly hair. But a week later, his story changed. Different time, different place, suspicious definitely. Then in 1995, 2 years after Claire was murdered, it happened again. A woman walking under a bridge near Dartford was attacked. She was dragged off the road, stabbed, and somehow, she survived. Witnesses saw a white Ford car fleeing the scene. The car belonged to a local milkman. His name, Colin Ash Smith. Now remember that name? Because Colin wasn't just a guy with a suspicious car. He was also the son of a local counselor. He had a girlfriend. He looked ordinary. But police would soon learn he was anything but. Colin never went anywhere without a knife, with a warrant in hand. Investigators searched his home. There they found a knife, not just any knife, the knife used in the 1995 bridge attack, and then came the most chilling discovery of all his diary. He had been writing it for years. Inside were admissions, detailed descriptions of the quarry attack in 1988. He called it a masterpiece, wrote, it was 95% successful. He vowed to do better next time. When the woman survived, he was furious. One entry read, "If she describes me, I'll kill a schoolgirl." Sound familiar? His diary included names, plans, failures, and what he called his psycho state of mind. He obsessed over women, broke into homes, wrote fictional stories about sexual encounters that never happened. His weapon collection included 20-30 knives, a crossbow, a pistol, even an imitation magnum, but still, nothing in the diary directly mentioned Claire, not yet. And so despite 2 attempted murders and 1 written confession, Claire's case stayed cold until one detail changed everything. Police learned that Colin had attended Claire's funeral, not just attended. He socialized at the same British Legion club. He knew Claire, had spoken to her. He even told police he'd seen a man at the zebra crossing the night of the murder. The very detail he had written about in his prison diaries years later. Now the noose was tightening, but Colin had an alibi. His mother, Diane, town mayor and councillor, said he'd been with her delivering leaflets. It was a lie. And it wouldn't be the last. As investigators dug deeper, they realized that the story Colin's parents told was unraveling fast. That alibi. His mother's claim that he was out delivering leaflets with her began to look suspicious. Because Colin was the same man who had called the police the day after Claire's murder, reporting a man he claimed to see near a zebra crossing. The same crossing mentioned in his disturbing diaries. It was a classic move diversion, create a suspect, plant confusion, throw investigators off the trail. But what he didn't realize was that by changing his story, he had made a fatal mistake. He had placed himself near the scene at the time of the murder. When police followed up on his alibi, it didn't hold. His parents knew he carried knives. After Claire's murder, his father quietly took Colin's knife, destroyed it, and dumped it. Aubrey Ash Smith. Colin's father would later be sentenced to 12 months in prison for perverting the course of justice. He admitted to boiling the knife, dismantling it, and getting rid of the pieces just before police searched the home. The judge said this act might have destroyed the one piece of evidence that could have proven Colin's guilt beyond question. When questioned by the media, Colin's mother, Diane, doubled down. She denied everything, but then in a shocking moment on a television interview, she admitted to ordering the knife's disposal. Her words were chilling, I said. "For Christ's sake, get rid of that bloody knife." You know what the police are like. A local official, a mother, and an accomplice to cover up. But that wasn't the end of Colin's disturbing behavior. Investigators found a long-standing pattern of obsession. He would become fixated on women, follow them, break into their homes. One victim was the wife of a former colleague. Colin wrote about her obsessively planning to rape her, calling the assault the Jarvis attack and giving it a 50% success rating in his diaries. He even hung her cut-up nightdress in her bathroom after breaking in. He fantasized about crimes that never happened. He wrote about fake encounters like they were memories. All of it carefully documented, all of it soaked in rage and control. But what about Claire? Two other suspects had been considered. One was Peter Rivers, who strangled and stabbed his own mother to death in 1994. In a suicide note, he hinted that he was being suspected of Claire's murder. The other was Robert Napper, a known serial rapist and killer, later convicted of the brutal murder of Rachel Nichol and two others. Napper's crimes were violent, frenzied, and involved knives. But the closer police looked, the more things pointed back to Colin. Still, the case went cold. A decade passed. Claire's memorial plaque was even vandalized in 2003, yet her memory never faded. Former classmates still sent her parents Christmas cards, her last school photo hung in the hallway. Her volunteering award from the fire brigade sat on the mantle. Claire had been gone for 10 years, but no one stopped believing. Then came the legal breakthrough. In 2003, the Criminal Justice Act changed the game. For the first time, a defendant's bad character and previous acts could be presented to a jury. That meant Colin's diary, his obsessions, his patterns, all admissible. But tragedy struck again. In 2008, Claire's mother Linda died of cancer at just 56. On the anniversary of Claire's death in 2012, her father Cliff made a public plea for new information. He said she would have been 35 now. I miss her to bits. Claire's gone, her mom's gone. There's now only me. I try to stay strong, but I still cry my eyes out. That same year, Cliff also passed away before ever seeing justice for his daughter. The lead detective said, "A good man went to his grave without ever seeing justice for the murder of his only child." It wasn't just a loss, it was a second heartbreak for a family that had already lost everything. But Claire's friends never gave up. On the 20th anniversary of her death, they held a candlelit walk retracing her steps that night. The Prime Minister at the time, David Cameron, joined in the public appeal. Behind the scenes, police launched a new cold case review. Colin Ash Smith was still their prime suspect. They interviewed a former cellmate, Stefan, who remembered something chilling. Colin had once mentioned a zebra crossing. The detail stuck. Claire's case was the only one of his known attacks near such a crossing. No zebra crossings existed near the locations of his other two crimes, just as such Claire's. It was the crack they needed. In September 2013, police searched Colin's old family home. They found a newspaper saved for 20 years, marking the one-year anniversary of Claire's murder. They also collected more of Colin's writings. With the new laws in place, prosecutors now had a case. In February 2014, Colin Ash Smith was officially charged with the murder of Claire Tiltman. It happened on the same day he was supposed to be considered for parole. The trial began on November 6th. Prosecutor Brian Altman QC described it plainly. This was a killing for the sake of killing, carried out by a ruthless, predatory man who attacked rapidly and without warning. Claire had no time to escape or defend herself. In court, Colin admitted to taking midnight walks with a knife, hoping to provoke someone or to find someone to control. He said he started doing this at 19. His diaries confirmed it. He collected knives obsessively. His former girlfriend said he acted strangely after Claire's death. Colin claimed he was just upset like everyone else, but the jury didn't buy it. He described women as having power over him, said he didn't like or trust them. He carried knives daily. Had up to 30 in his possession. He even admitted to owning a crossbow air rifle and imitation magna. In court, Stefan, the inmate who once told police about the zebra crossing, backtracked. Said his memory was foggy, that he may have confused it with someone else. But it didn't matter. The timeline, the location, the diaries, the lies, the knife. It all painted the same picture. The man who killed Claire Tiltman was already behind bars, and now justice was finally catching up. On December 11th, 2014, after a 5-week trial and just 3.5 hours of jury deliberation, the verdict was announced. Colin Ash Smith was found guilty of the murder of Claire Tiltman. In a packed courtroom at the Inner London Crown Court, he showed no emotion as the decision was read aloud. But Colin wasn't there for sentencing. He refused to attend, just as he had refused to face the victim impact statement, just as he had avoided every confrontation with the consequences of his violence. Judge Mr. Justice Sweeney did not mince words. He said, "I have no doubt that this was a premeditated murder carried out because of the feeling of power it gave you. You not only ended Claire's young life so full of promise, but also inflicted unbearable grief on her family and friends." Colin Ash Smith was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 21 years. He would never again walk the streets of Dartford. Outside the courtroom, emotions ran high. Claire's best friend Lisa had flown down from Scotland to be there. She brought photos of Claire's parents, Cliff and Linda, so that they could be present at the trial. They never lived to see. For Lisa and Claire's other friends, it was a bittersweet victory. Justice had finally been served. But the people who had suffered most never saw it happen during the trial. Lisa spoke with reporters. She said, "We've always talked about how much her parents loved her, but we haven't talked enough about how much Claire loved them. They were her idols." One of the most heartbreaking moments came when Linda's cousin Len collapsed from a stroke inside the courtroom during the proceedings. He was rushed to the hospital. Even as justice approached, tragedy refused to let go. But the truth had finally emerged, and the community of Greenhithe had answers at last. One element raised during the trial cast a deeper, more disturbing shadow. The possibility that Colin's mother Diane had used her influence as a local counselor to interfere with the investigation. Former Mayor Philip Crowe-Sastra testified that she had attended a police briefing along with other officials. But while others asked broad questions, Diane fixated on one detail: the car. The white Ford Capri. Over and over, she asked about the car, where it was. Whether police were still pursuing leads, she wouldn't let it go. It was clear to everyone in the room she was trying to steer the investigation. What she didn't realize was that her behavior only raised more suspicions. And behind all of this was her son, who had already confessed to attempted murder, already been convicted, already written out. His darkest fantasies in full following Claire's murder. Colin withdrew from the British Legion Club, where photos of Claire were displayed. He isolated, became erratic, practiced simulated attacks on his girlfriend. His diaries, now admissible in court under the new legal framework, painted a picture so detailed, so disturbing that they left little room for doubt. One chilling entry described spotting a woman alone at a train station. He wrote, "Fully deserted, just me and her, for 25 minutes. All arrangements were made where to take her, where to hide her escape route. Everything down to the last detail, but I bottled it. Lucky for her, I suppose." He wasn't fantasizing. He was planning, waiting, hunting. His obsession with control, violence, and power over women wasn't just in theory, it was in motion. Prosecutors argued that the similarities between Claire's killing and his known attacks were overwhelming. Each time random victim, no motive repeated. Stabbing, overwhelming force. It wasn't about theft, it wasn't about passion, it was about domination. One of the final blows to Colin's defense came from his own mouth. During earlier interviews, he had volunteered information about the man on the zebra crossing, details that investigators hadn't released to the public. details only the killer would know. In trying to deflect suspicion, he had given himself away. Colin later tried to appeal the conviction. He claimed the judge had allowed gravely prejudicial material, especially the diary excerpts and testimony about his other crime. But the Court of Appeals swiftly dismissed his case. Lord Justice Davis said it was unarguable. The diary entries weren't just background. They were a map of Colin's mind, and that map led directly to Claire. In the aftermath of the trial, Kent police revealed the staggering scope of the investigation. More than 2,500 witness statements, over 1,500 people interviewed, 40,000 documents collected, 20,000 names on their suspect database. And yet, after 2 decades, the answer had been hiding in plain sight. He had been at the funeral, smiling morning watching. After the verdict, a road in Greenhithe was renamed Tiltman Avenue, a tribute to Claire, a symbol of remembrance. The community came together to plant Claire roses, marking the 30th anniversary of her death. Her memory now lives in a newly opened eco-center bearing her name, where children and young people gather for education and creativity. A positive legacy rising from a senseless act. Lisa, her friend said, "It's lovely to see something good associated with Claire's name. That's what she deserves." But perhaps the final word belongs to the Justice for Claire group. Their statement echoed what so many had felt for over 2 decades. It's been nearly 22 years since Claire was cruelly taken from us at just 16. Today we finally know who murdered her. What we will never understand is why this murder destroyed an entire family. It took their daughter. It took their lives, and yet we are certain she would have become a firefighter. She would have saved lives. She would have done great things. But that dream was stolen. In the end, they said, we will never get Claire back. But now, she and her beloved parents can finally rest in peace. The case of Claire Tiltman isn't just a tale of tragedy. It's a reminder of what justice can look like. Slow, painful, but possible. And it's a chilling portrait of what happens when a killer hides in plain sight, shielded by lies, enabled by silence, and protected by a trusted position in the community. Colin Ash Smith was exactly that kind of predator. For years he walked free, smiled in photographs, attended community events, and shook hands with neighbors, all while harboring a darkness that few could imagine.
So that's how crimes end, and if you like this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on the notifications. If you want me to do some special crimes in all over the world, comment down below, or you can send us direct through email, and I will see you in all my videos. See ya!